At the end of the day, it's not about what you have or even what you've accomplished. It's about what you've done with those accomplishments. It's about who you've lifted up, who you've made better. It's about what you've given back. Denzel Washington. Welcome to Inspire Vision. Our sole purpose is to elevate the lives of others and to inspire you to do the same.
June Edward, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's good to have you. This should be interesting. You've written a number of books, and I know that we'll want to talk about a couple of those today. But what I'd love for you to do is share with the audience who you are and maybe the story behind how did you get to this point in your life.
Sure. So I'm a relationship expert, a best-selling author, and I'm a psychic medium as well. I passed to the other side at the age of 27. I came back here by choice. Been in business my entire life. Never thought I'd be doing what I'm doing. Never thought I'd be talking to dead people and seeing dead people all over the place, to be honest. But I try to help people navigate the daily ups and downs, the roller coaster ride. Why are we here, basically? How come the same things keep happening in my life or in my relationships? How come I can't keep money in my hands? We're all here for specific lessons, and that's what I've learned, and that's what I try to teach people.
Wow, interesting. So, do you mind sharing with the audience a little bit about your death experience?
Sure. So I was born with a lot of psychic ability first. My first experience that I remember was about the age of 3 years old. And I remember waking up in the morning and hearing somebody call my name. Got out of bed thinking it's one of my parents. I go in their room and they're fast asleep. I go back to my room and start realizing that there's all these faces in my room looking at me, which was very, very frightening for a child. Pulled the covers over my head, and as the sun started coming up, I started seeing their shadow face, like literally face to face with me. It was very scary. As I got a little bit older, I just started knowing everything that was going to happen before it happened, and I would tell kids in school and quickly got labeled a freak. So I
Yeah.
stopped doing that pretty quickly. Kids are pretty cruel. When I got older, my parents split when I was 10. My dad actually kidnapped the youngest five of us. And my job every night was to do the dishes after dinner. And I would do the dishes at night, and there would be a woman that would keep me company. Didn't have any friends, so I appreciated it. She was about the age of 45. So one day I asked my older brother who she was, and he told me that she was the woman that was killed in the house. Her husband murdered her, threw her down the basement stairs. And it scared me so much that she didn't come back anymore. I'm sure she felt it and knew it. So, having those experiences, I really tried to block any abilities that I had because it was frightening for most people, right? You don't know what to
Right.
do with it, and it's just scary stuff. So when I was 22, I injured my back at work, and I needed back surgery. And I put it off as long as I could because I just knew that if I went in, I was going to die. And that was, when you have that knowing, that's literally your soul. And it was giving me a heads up, basically. And, after about 5 years, they told me if I wanted to have any more children, I had to have the back surgery. There was no choice. And I told my husband, and I think probably my mother-in-law too, before I went in, that I knew I was going to die. And they're like, oh, no, you're just afraid. You'll be fine, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm telling you. Sure enough, the night before the surgery, I had an MRI test done with a contrast dye. And I told them I thought I was allergic to it. I'd had it once before. I had a really bad reaction. I couldn't get off the table. And they just shrugged it off. They're like, it's no big deal. Everybody has that reaction. It's normal. I'm like, what do I know, right? I'm 27. I'm not the doctor, right? So as soon as they injected me with that dye, I died immediately. And, I never called it a near-death experience. And I never even heard the term until a few years ago because I literally died. And I knew that it wasn't near death. I've done a lot of research on it in the last year or so for a TED Talk. And what I realized is that, the scientists coined that term NDE because they lump everybody into it. So if you're going to get into an accident or something, your soul jumps out of your body and will witness it. That's considered an NDE. So when I died, I didn't see a tunnel. I didn't see any of those things. I was just, boom, I was right there on the other side. And it's amazing. It's really amazing over there.
Other people there? Other people
So,
there?
so that wasn't, there are, but that was not my experience at the time. At the time, my experience was that, I could see everything below that was happening. I could see my body and them working on me and everything they were doing. I could hear the nurses and see them out at the podium talking about it. I could see the guy in the room in back of me, the older guy, they were working on him. And in the meantime, I'm like standing in front of this IMAX theater. I'm getting a life review, basically. And it was, again, everybody's experience is a little bit differently based on, I guess, what they want you to see. And they were just showing me all the times in my life that had been really wonderful, the people that had helped me and loved me and cared about me. But was interesting, my children weren't there. There were no kids up there. It was my marriage, all those types of things. And then I heard from behind me that it's not really my time. I can stay if I want to, or I can go back. It's up to me. And I'm thinking about it. I'll tell you, it was just so amazing.
Excuse me.
I used to say that the two things you take with you are love and knowledge, because I was overwhelmed with a sense of love. But I've since learned, now that I do this work, that we take all of our feelings with us. I've brought lots of people through that are in regret or sadness or anger. But I was having an overwhelming sense of love. And then I remembered my children. I had two young children here at the time. And I knew that one of the biggest reasons that I came back in this lifetime was for them, and that they brought me the biggest joys in my life. And as soon as I made that decision that I wanted to come back, I was back in my body in a millisecond.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So in one of your books, you talk about all's fair in love and karma. Could you explain the meaning behind that
Sure.
title?
So karma is something that we develop in this present lifetime. If you do something to someone else, you do not make amends and you do not have remorse, now you've created a karmic debt that you owe that person in another lifetime. Same thing if they do the same thing to you. So karma is really not a bad thing, because the reality is we're all here to help each other, and we're here for our highest and best. You're here for your soul to advance, for your soul to learn. And I've identified through the relationship mastery program that I have that there are 5 lessons that everyone has to learn. And they're not the easiest things to do. And if you don't learn them, you keep repeating. But the people that come into your life are there to help you. So you have 3 different types of relationships. You have a karmic relationship, a soulmate relationship, and a twin flame relationship. And we have multiple karmic and multiple soulmate relationships, and twin flame relationships are extremely rare. Next to no one has one, even though everybody in the internet thinks everyone's got one because of the movies and the books. That's not true. So a karmic relationship is specifically that, someone that you owe karma to or they owe you. And they come into this lifetime for either you to learn a lesson or for you to teach them a lesson. And you know it's a karmic relationship because it never quite feels right. It's like you're looking for the red flags. You're waiting for the shoe to drop. And relationships aren't just romantic. It could be your mother, your brother, your friend, your boss, your coworker, your dog. Everything is relationship. We're in relationship with everyone. So who is that person that's in your life that just doesn't feel right? And as soon as one or the other learn the lesson that you're supposed to learn, that relationship ends immediately. It's like you wake up the next morning and you're like, why do I have this person in my life? And it ends. If you've both learned your lesson, it ends amicably. If only one or the other has learned their lesson, it ends, but it's not amicable. Then you have a soulmate relationship. Now, soulmates still are there to teach you a lesson or for you to learn a lesson, but they're also there to afford you some love and comfort along the way. And you know it's a soulmate because it feels really comfortable. It's really nice to be with that person. Feels like you've known them a long time. Sometimes things move a lot faster than normal. That's a soulmate relationship. And soulmate relationships don't have to end once the lesson is learned. It really depends on what you wrote into your soul plan before you came here. Okay.
And you can have multiple soulmate experiences
Absolutely.
in this life.
Absolutely. And no one said any relationship is meant to last forever. A lot of them aren't. A lot of them are just there to teach you that lesson, and then it's over, even if it's a soulmate relationship.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And then twin flame relationships are literally one soul that split into two bodies prior to reincarnating. Extremely rare. There's only like 174,000 of them on the earth at any given time. They're here for a higher purpose. They're here to help humanity. And at some predetermined time in your life, you will meet. And when that happens, your whole world gets blown upside down. They are always extremely passionate, extremely sexual, extremely psychic, and extremely short. They last for literally a few days to a few months. And when it's over, it's like you've been ghosted. And if you're both able to learn the 5 lessons you need to learn and get on the path that you're supposed to be on of helping humanity, you'll have an opportunity to reunite in this lifetime. Otherwise, you'll have to wait till you get to the other side again. And that's the case with most twin flames. They don't reconnect. Only one of the two will understand the connection immediately. And it's complete devastation for that one because no one else will ever compare. They'll never get that feeling back again. They'll always be settling with anybody else in their life. It's a very challenging relationship.
Well, and it's interesting. I'm sure that you get a lot of. Do you get a lot of pushback? Let me ask you it as a question. Do you find that as a medium, I mean, that is still a little bit on the outside of what we would call normal culture? You're talking about past lives, reincarnation. I just wrote a blog on that and compared that to the possible DNA memory as well as universal conscious that Carl Jung talks about, how we can have all of these memories and so forth. But do you find it's a bit of a challenge being a little bit outside of the box on that?
I look at it this way. I've been attacked by many, many people. Even doing a podcast, I'll be attacked because I'm not humble enough, having died and come back. Well, you know what? Everybody wants to live here for drama. They want to live for, we're in a 3D experience here. Yes, you're supposed to be living this reality. But I find a lot of people are trapped in this reality and they can't think beyond. Because our belief system is based on what we've been taught, right? What we've been told or what we experience. And when people put blinders on and don't see what's going on around them, they're not going to experience the reality of what this world is. There are miracles that happen every day, all around us. Tell me how a bumblebee flies.
Yeah.
It's a miracle. It's because no one ever told it can't. Aerodynamically, it can't fly. My son's a pilot, and I asked him, what'd they tell you in the Air Force Academy? What'd they tell you about a bumblebee? They're like, they don't really know. They think it's some uplift of air. They don't know. So you have to, until something happens to you, you're not going to really want to change the way you see things. It's just like, say there was a bank robbery, right? And they want eyewitness accounts. Do you know 90% of those people can't eyewitness anybody because they don't pay attention enough to what's going on around them? That's the reality. It's like atheists. I've known a couple of people in my life that were atheists, and I was shocked at one of them because I'd been friends with them for years and never knew they were an atheist. And I'm like, there is a God. Trust me, I died. Right? There's more beyond here. And they're like, no, we're like ants. Once we die, we're dead. I'm like, no. So it's interesting because the closer we get to our maker, the more curious we are, the more we want to know. And he's not an atheist anymore. And I asked him what happened. He wouldn't tell me, but something will happen to everyone at some point that will make them question their reality. It will.
Well, and I'm curious, when you talk about this life, all right, this is the here and now, why are we here? What are we here to learn?
So we come back for different reasons. We reincarnate, what I've been able to determine is about every 350 to 400 years of our time, because time is different. The faster you move, the slower time is. And they're moving at the other side like 186,000 miles an hour or more. That's the speed of light, right? So time is slower there. Slower here. Okay.
Slower here than there. Faster
okay?
there. Yeah.
Right. So when you're on the other side, it's like you don't have a body. You can only live vicariously through the people that are here. you're still living the last existence on earth that you had here. So they're still very connected to the people that were here, their family members, their friends, the things they used to like and enjoy. They're still very connected to that last lifetime when they're on the other side. And they choose to wait until generations are gone and nobody remembers them before they decide to come back. But they come back for different, we come back for different reasons. We come back because we don't have that body. So you can't smell, you can't taste, you actually can't go out and do fishing, you can't have sex, you can't do any of those things. So it's nice to be able to experience those things in the 3D world. So it's a little bit of a mini vacation. We also come to collect our karmic debts, to pay back the karmic debts that we owe. And those are all done towards teaching us the 5 lessons that we need to learn that are all about advancing our soul. Because on the other side, there's different levels in heaven, and you go to that different level based on how advanced your soul is. So it's all about advancing your soul. So we come back to help each other learn those lessons as well. Those are the main reasons that we come here. And we're not here for that long when you think about it.
No,
You know,
no. When you look at eternity, it's a
blink of an eye.
long time. Yeah, yeah.
Really
It's
just a
amazing.
blink of an eye that we're here. Yeah.
Well, and what do we need to learn here? I mean, you talk about 5 lessons. So,
Yep.
and the question is, at what level do you need to reach based on your belief in reincarnation? What do you need to reach to a point where you are able to move forward? Then, you know, I spent months in Thailand, and I've really studied Buddhism. I found that a fascinating concept, and you know, he talks about reaching a certain level and then either reincarnating, or if you reach a certain level, you're able to move on to heaven. And you talk about heaven with different
Yes.
levels.
So having been there, you're already in heaven as soon as you die and choose to go into that light. If you don't choose to go into that light, then you're stuck here as a lower vibrational entity. People call them ghosts. Okay.
So you can choose to go into the light when you die. Is that correct?
You can. There's a lot of people that don't for lots of reasons. Some people are afraid of being judged. Okay, they've lived this last lifetime saying, people telling them, oh, you're gay, you're never going to go to heaven, you're going to be stuck. So now when they die, they're stuck because they think if they go to heaven, they're going to get judged. That is not true. You are not judged when you go to heaven, not at all. Other people don't realize they're dead. So a lot of children I find that are wandering around because they've passed away, they don't know they're dead, and they're looking for their parents. So, you know, a lot of times I have to call their parents or a relative from the light to bring them into the light so that they'll go into the light. And other people, they don't really realize they're dead for quite some time. They might follow their body from the hospital to the funeral parlor when they're just wandering around. They'll see the light, but they're not really understanding that they're supposed to go into it. So there's lots of different reasons that people don't go into the light. I think the majority of souls do, however, go into the light. And it really doesn't have anything to do with how advanced your soul is. There's a lot of people here that are not advanced souls. They still go to heaven. They just go to a different level. There's many levels. How many levels? I don't know. I'm not allowed to go any higher than the 5th dimension, which is the lowest level of heaven. And that's where I went when I died the first time. I can go back and forth from there at will. Now, when my mom died, there was an angel in the room at the time, and I asked her if she saw the angel, and she didn't see the angel right away. When I came back the next day and they told me she had stage 4 cancer, she had a couple hours left. I asked her if she saw the angel at that point. She said she saw him. So during the night, I asked him his name, and he said it was Makael, not Michael, Makael. And I looked it up because he said it was Makael. And Makael, it said, was the angel that brings advanced souls to the higher realms. I looked it up, like a year later and found out that Makael is Michael. But had he said it's Archangel Michael, I wouldn't have looked it up and I wouldn't have known that there were advanced realms or higher realms. So from there, when my mom's soul left her body, I got to see that, and I saw him as well as her relatives take her to the higher realms. And my dad was already there, and 2 sisters were already there that met her. Now, they've allowed me to also see it from like the outside to see what it looks like. And it just looks like a big crystal tower. But they've explained it to me that it's like a layer cake and that you go to the level based on your belief system and how advanced your soul is. Because you kind of stay with groups. You have a big soul group that we all stay with and reincarnate with, but there's hundreds of millions of people, if not billions, in each of those soul groups. But then that soul group also breaks down into the different layers based on how advanced your soul is and your belief system. So it's kind of complicated.
Are you able to actually move up once you're in a group? Are you able, if you really have a desire to do that, are you able to move up into different levels?
So I believe it has to do with advancing your soul. Hence the reason that we have those 5 lessons that we have to learn in order to advance our soul and go up to those levels. Yeah.
Okay. So question, how does one accept the validity of what you're talking about? Because you're experiencing something that most of us never experience. Now, please let me say, I have no doubts. Okay. I have no doubts of what you're talking about. It's very familiar, as a matter of fact. But how do you help people to be able to understand that, you know what, this is valid, so that as they accept that, then they're able to allow you to help them in the various ways that they need?
So the reality is this: while you're here in this body, we all have a brain in our head, right? Your brain is nothing more than a massive computer. It helps you process all the information that you have. Some people's computers are smarter and better than others, right? But your brain has a specific job. Your brain's job is to protect you. How does it do that? It does it by creating fear. So most people are making all their decisions in life based on fear. When you do that, it's a 50-50 crapshoot. Sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong, but you're always questioning it, right? I teach people how to get in touch with their soul. Your soul is that knowing. Everyone's had something in their life that they just knew they were supposed to do. They didn't think it through. They just did it, and it worked out fine 100% of the time. So you can think things through all you want in your brain, but you're only going to come to different conclusions. When you get in touch with your soul, you'll understand what's true, what's not true, okay, what you're supposed to be doing, those types of things. So anyone that's listening to this podcast is listening to this for a reason. There's nothing random in life. They may take something I said and agree with it, understand it. Others may say, "Huh, that sounds like a bunch of crap." I'm not here to try to convince anyone, to be quite honest with you. I'm just here to try to help whoever I can, give them the information that I know, and take with it what they will. If it helps them improve their life and better their circumstances here, then that's my goal. It's just like people can't see energy, right? Just like microwaves, you can't see that. You can't see the air you're breathing. You can't see energy, but it's there. Animals can see energy. The shapes of their eyes are different. Colors don't actually exist. We see color because the shape of our eye and the way the light reflects off of things, okay? So I have the ability to see energy. I have since I was a kid. I think that's why I see the ghosts. But since I came back, you would think that as soon as I died and came back at 27, that would have been it, right? That was not the case. I still had fear. And you cannot do anything with fear because your brain blocks it. So for instance, my dad, when he was 93, was on his deathbed. I went up to see him one day and he's like, I want to talk to you about what you do. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. You always said it was crap, right? I'm nuts, right? What do you want to know? He goes, well, I want to know why I wake up every morning and I see my mom standing next to my bed. I said, well, it's about time, Dad. She's been standing there for like a year. I said, she's there. So when it's your time, she's going to help transition you to the other side. He goes, well, that's not really what I want to know. I said, well, what do you want to know? I want to know why when I wake up, I see her, but then she disappears after a couple seconds. I said, she didn't disappear, Dad. She's still standing here. I said, your brain kicked in and is blocking it. That's the reason. And this is the reason that people question everything so much instead of listening to that soul, that gut feeling, and knowing if something is true or not true. You know, it's just like walking into a room and feeling the energy, right? Reading the room. It's the same thing. And when you learn how to get in touch with your soul, you can do that all the time. And when you get out of your head, you can start seeing these things for yourself. You don't have to believe me. You can just see them yourself.
Yeah, that's true. So you talk a lot about the 5 lessons that we have to learn. I'd love for you, if you don't mind, to share each of those lessons for the audience. And what are they that we need to learn to be able to reach a level that we can move forward in a positive way?
So the first lesson, and I'd like to say it's the most important. I don't know it's the most important, but I think it's where everything starts, is self-worth. And self-worth is not value. Value is what other people place on you. Self-worth is the understanding that you are so important, that you are the only one of you in this entire universe. Even if you're a twin, you have different likes, different dislikes, you even have different fingerprints. You're separate, okay? And it's not selfish and it's not narcissistic, as society would like you to believe, to put yourself first. It's where everything else comes from. If you can't take care of yourself first, you're just not going to be here for anybody else, are you? It's that
That's
simple.
right. That's
You
right.
won't
And
be- you won't be here to help.
yeah, and I think people misunderstand narcissism. It's one thing to focus on yourself; it's another thing to be at a level that is
Yeah, I think the
narcissistic.
universe
Yeah.
circles around you. That's
Yeah.
narcissism.
Okay, so that's number one, self-worth. What's
So
the
it's
second
also
one?
it's also understanding that no one has power over you. I can't look at you and say, "Hey, I want you to fall in love with me." It doesn't work that way. You are the only person that's responsible for how you feel. I can't make you mad. I can't make you love me or make you angry. Those are all on you. How you feel is all on you. You have to be responsible for that, because you're responsible for your actions and your reactions. Okay, those are huge. We live in a society now like, well, you've hurt his feelings. No, I didn't. I said what I needed to say. And if his feelings are hurt, then that's him. That's it. The second one is trust and communication. And you have to trust, first of all, that there is a higher power. It doesn't matter what you call it. You can call it Buddha. You can call it, I don't know, pick any religion. There's hundreds of thousands of them, right? But there's only one. And I call it either God or source energy. There's only one. And that's it. And you have to know that there is a higher power. And you also have to know that there is a plan. And you made this plan before you came here. So if you don't like what's happening in your life, guess what? You've got nobody to blame but you. When you get stubborn and you're not on your path, the universe will step in. Suppose you were supposed to move from here to California and you're being very stubborn and I'm not going to move. I'm not going to move. Well, the universe will step in. Maybe they'll make you lose your job or burn your house down. So you've got no choice to go, right? Because that's where you're supposed to be. You also have to be able to communicate your wants and your needs to the people in your life, because people don't know what you want or you need just by osmosis. You have to learn how to communicate. And then sex is nothing more than just another form of communication. If you can't communicate and trust outside the bedroom, you're not going to be able to do it inside the bedroom. It's that simple. Then you have unconditional love. Unconditional love is not saying, oh, I've got to stay in this relationship with him, even though he only beats me on Sundays, because I'm supposed to be practicing unconditional love. This is where self-worth will step back in, because each of the lessons will keep reinforcing the next lesson. Unconditional love is saying, listen, we had a great run. It was good while it lasted, but neither one of us are getting joy from this at this point. It's time for us to move on. I want the best for you. I want the best for me. And it's meaning it. It's not, waiting till the weekend when you're in, company of mutual friends and then bad mouthing them. That's not what that is. It's really, truly wanting the best for everyone in your life, whether you're able to keep them in your life or not. Okay. You can still send them love and want the best for them. That's unconditional love. Suppose you had a child that you loved dearly and they did something horrific, like they murdered a neighbor in a fit of rage, and they go to prison for the rest of their life. You don't like what your child did, but hopefully you're still going to love your child. That's unconditional love. And then I've had people tell me, well, there's conditions there. It was your child, or, it was a relationship. Well, if you can't learn it that way, the universe will keep stepping it up for you. Maybe a drunk driver will take your child. Now, are you going to spend your life hating the drunk driver because they took your child's life? Or are you going to be able to understand that there's lessons there for everyone? The driver, probably the medical community, yourself, and that your child had this written into his plan that he wasn't going to stay here for that long. He was going to go back early. You have to be able to learn that lesson. It's a difficult lesson for a lot of people. It really is. It's very challenging. Then you have money and balance. So everything in the universe has to stay in balance. This is why you have good and evil. It's why you have the night and the day. Everything has to stay in balance. And money is energy. That's why it's called currency. And it's what we use in this 3D world to show whether or not your life is in balance. If you're working 80 hours a week to earn some money, then you don't have any balance in the rest of your life. There's no time for your friends, your family, your hobbies, right? And then you're putting all this money aside and you're saving it, you're not spending it. Everything else is going to be out of balance. You can't hoard it. Money is energy, so it has to go, it has to flow like a river. What you put out will come back. The universe wants you to live in abundance. No one is supposed to live in lack. Even, the beggar that's on the street, if he wants a hot meal and a bed to sleep in, communicate, ask. The universe will send somebody to tell him where to go. You have to do the work to get the reward. That's how the universe works. But if you're asking and paying attention, it will be shown to you. And then the last lesson is patience, because it's not always going to come immediately. Things are going to come to you at the perfect time, the time they're supposed to come. Suppose you've been, you're getting older in years, you haven't gotten married or had a family yet. Doesn't mean it's never going to happen. If it hasn't happened yet, it's because that's the way you wrote your plan. Maybe this time around you wanted to do it without raising children. Maybe you wanted to travel. I don't know. But it doesn't mean it's never going to happen. Maybe when you're 60, you're going to marry a 45-year-old widow and raise his younger children for him. You don't know. You just have to trust and have that patience that once you've asked the universe for something, it is eventually going to come to you. It always does. So that's one of the biggest things too, is patience.
Is patience. And you find that with those 5 elements, you have achieved a certain level of, and I talk a lot about how important it is the beingness rather than the doingness. In other words, I'm to be rather than to do. You're talking about, in many cases here, being. It's something that you create within your soul, within your body. Is that true?
It is, but you're also here to live this 3D life. So this is where it's all intertwined for you. And the reason that I learned these lessons was because about 5 years ago, I created the Relationship Mastery Program. And I geared it towards people that are having difficulty in their relationships, their marriages. And I only work with one person. I don't believe in working with couples, because then you're just you're just the referee at that point. Because it only takes one person to make or change anything in life. For every action, there's an equal or greater reaction. So when you change, everything around you changes. And because we're energetic beings, we're like magnets. We're always either attracting or repelling at any given time. It's just like a radio station. You can't get the station in unless you're on the right frequency, right?
Right.
Frequency, energy, vibration, all different names for the same thing. So when you raise your vibration, if you're supposed to be with those people, they're going to raise their vibration as well, because they're on that energetic frequency, and anyone else is going to drop off. So it only takes one person to make or break any situation. And everyone that went through my program, I put hundreds of people through that program. Every single solitary one of them was learning these 5 lessons.
Well, and so any stories? I mean, I spoke with someone, a couple of months ago and talked about how, as you say, you reach a certain level of who you are, and that affects everyone around you. So in relationships where you're talking about, a marriage, for instance, and they're struggling, any stories about how you've helped just the one person and how by them becoming who they need to be.
400 of them.
Well, just one right now, that would be great, that they actually saw their partner,
I'll
or
give
3.
you 2 different ones. So
Okay.
the first thing I would always tell my students, and I would tell everyone, I will never tell you whether or not you belong with that person. That's something you have to decide once you get in touch with your soul. Okay. So I teach them how to get in touch with their soul, how to raise their vibration. And then the law of attraction also kicks in as well, and how to balance their energy. That way you maintain it. So I had one woman in particular that I can think of that was in an extremely abusive relationship. And she started going through the program, and again, I'm not going to tell you what you're supposed to be doing. You need to determine that once you've gotten in touch with your soul and your vibration has started to rise. And it's only a 7-week program. So it only takes 3 or 4 weeks to start getting in touch with your soul and understanding what you're doing. And I can tell you that 99 out of 100 people would have told her, dump this guy and run for the hills. Okay. After getting in touch with her soul, she realized that she was supposed to be with him. She wasn't supposed to leave. And she didn't. She stayed with him and she turned him around 180 degrees. And they still are together and have a wonderful life. And he's very loving and caring and comforting to her now.
And no longer an abuser.
No, nope, not at all.
Wow.
Nope.
Wow.
That's one. And the second one that I can think of, a gentleman contacted me. He had just gotten out of prison and he was contemplating taking his life, and I popped up on his computer. So he scheduled an appointment. He watched my video, he watched my webinar, and great guy, older gentleman. He was a Midwestern farmer, and he had taken in a lot of cattle from the town, and it's a very small town. And he was having financial difficulties, and he started selling their cattle and keeping the money. And obviously he got caught fairly quickly as well. Again, it's a small town.
Yeah.
And he went to jail for 6 months. And when he was in jail, his wife divorced him. His kids wouldn't talk to him, and obviously lost all of his friends. So he had nothing when he came out of prison. After going through the program, he decided this wasn't really what he wanted to be doing anyways. Okay. It was something that was in his family. He always wanted to be in the restaurant business. So the first thing he did was went and talked to all of the people in the town that had been his friends that he sold their cattle, and said, listen, I apologize. This is what was happening in my life, and I will pay you back every cent. So the town started to rally around him. Then he went and got a franchise for a food truck and started doing a food truck. Then his daughters came back and rallied around him. Then he started writing a book about his experiences and what happened. And then within a year, he had the food truck, his daughters back, the whole town back, and published the book. So fast forward, it's been about 4 years for him. He now has a full-blown restaurant and the food truck, and he's finally dating his wife again. Took her a while. Yeah, patience there, but she finally started coming around, and he's dating her again. Yeah.
And I love the fact that you talk about that personal responsibility, that it's all about you. You're the one that has to change if you want to see a change in your environment
Everything
around you.
else around you will change. I promise. It's how it works.
Oh, that's amazing. So I noticed on your website, and somewhere as I was browsing it, you talked about the nature of love, or at least you had that listed. I'm curious what your thoughts are about the nature of love, because, as I look at love, Greek have 5 different types of love and so forth. And so, when we talk about love yourself, love your neighbor, love your family, love God, all of those types of things. What's your concept of nature of love?
So there are different types of love. You're not going to love your brother the same way that you're going to love, your husband or your wife, right?
Right.
And there's also love, and there's being in love, right? Being in love is more of an infatuation. Okay. And isn't it wonderful when you can be in love and love that same person? And
Yes.
I attribute a lot of very long relationships for the fact that you can continually fall in love with that same person over and over. But that takes effort. Okay. Because that's the infatuation type.
Right.
Yeah. So there are those different types. And then there is the ultimate, is it ethro, or I'm trying to think of the name of it. Agape.
Agape.
Is the ultimate. And that is the sacrificial love. And, anyone that has children that's older will understand that, because God knows if it was a choice that something was going to happen to your child, they were going to be sacrificed, you would step in a heartbeat, wouldn't you?
That's right.
That's that agape love, that you would sacrifice for something or take their place for something like that.
So how does that fit into our lives, and how do we adapt and learn that higher level of love for ourselves, for those around us? I would assume that that's really the ideal.
Well, it starts with self-worth and self-love. It all starts there. You can't love another if you can't love yourself, can you?
How do I love myself?
You look in that mirror every day and you be so grateful for the fact that you're here. And no matter, you are think about it. You are the soul inside. You're not the suit that sits here. Okay. You know what I love the most? And it's sad to say it, but there's a Marine veteran. And it's going to get me all choked up here, but he was severely burned in a war. And his wife, when he came back, people were looking at her and they're like, how can you stay with him? He looks like a monster. He was completely disfigured. And she's like, I didn't marry the suit. I married the man. She married the soul inside.
Yeah. Yeah. And, to discover that soul is an ongoing journey, isn't it? To really recognize, I talk to so many people that, and have coached, a few people that have all of these imprints in their lives about not being good enough or all these types of things. And yet, how to help them to understand that the soul is something of, you cannot value it because it's so great.
Well,
Go ahead.
it happens for a reason. So, I had a very, very difficult upbringing, very challenging, I'm one of 8 children and only one of 2 or 3 that managed to survive, literally. And I used to, when I was going through things growing up, I used to say to myself, "Geez, for everything I'm going through, I should be winning the lottery, the mass millions, the megabucks," right? And I have just the fact that, I understand why I'm here and I can appreciate the beauty in every single solitary day. People don't stop and do that. I live near the ocean now. I didn't before, but I do now because this is what my heart wanted me, my soul wanted me to go. And this is where I asked to go, and that's where it took me. And I feel the beauty and see the beauty in everything around me every day and be appreciative of that. So they're lessons. And, I was saying when I died at 27 and came back, you would think that would be the time all my abilities would open up, right? But that was not the case because I still had fear. My abilities actually opened up for me about 10 years ago when I was having a lot of trouble in my business and my life and going through another divorce. And I started to meditate. And like everybody else, I can't meditate. I can't shut my brain off that much, right? And the first time that I meditated, it was like they kicked the door into the other side. They're like, she's ready. And I couldn't shut it off. And I'm seeing full 3D ghosts again. I know everything about everyone that I come in contact with. And it was overwhelming. I had to find someone to help me learn how to turn it off, or I would have gone crazy. But everything that I had gone through up to that point, I needed to go through, or I wouldn't be able to counsel the people that I do. It's the old adage that you have to walk a mile in someone else's shoes to understand where they're coming from and what they've been through. And there's a lot of truth to that.
Oh, amen to that. And this has just been wonderful. We could go on for hours. I think I have so many questions for you. But as we close, what I'd love for you to do is just share with the audience what would be just that simple message that you'd like to share with the audience that could help them to move forward in their lives.
I would like to see people start focusing on themselves instead of the drama that's all around them. And I know when you grow up and you come from a situation that's dysfunctional, it becomes the norm for you. It becomes your comfort zone. Climb out of that comfort zone. Stop living in that drama. Start focusing on you. Start focusing on the beauty around you. If it means that you lose your friends over it, don't worry about it. You'll get new ones, better ones, I promise. But it all starts with you. It really does.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Well, June, thank you so much. This has been fascinating, and I was really looking forward to having you on the show just because I knew it was going to be a fascinating conversation. So I appreciate it. How do people find your books plural, and how do people find you?
So the easiest way is just to go to my website, is my name, juneedward.com. Very easy. There are links to all of my books on there. There's a free webinar that people can sign up for and learn a little bit more about energy and the Relationship Mastery Program. There's also appointments. You can schedule an appointment with me from the website, and there's links to all my social media there as well.
Great. Now, June Edward, is it Edward or Edwards.com?
No S, Edward, June Edward, EDWARD. Yep.
.com.
Yep,
All
very good.
right. Very good. June, thanks so much. Thanks
Oh,
so
thank
much.
you. You have a great day.
You too. And folks, thanks for joining us. I hope you really enjoyed it. And this is Dr. Doug saying namaste.